on everybody and say, okay, I've been through so many cycles of collective bargaining, and often things tend to get done at the 11th hour. We're getting awfully close to the 11th hour now when it comes to bargaining. I'm encouraged there has been more back and forth over the past few weeks. I think there's been, more direct engagement from players and team owners. I have not been at the table, but I'm very involved behind the scenes. I want to play whatever role would be most productive.
See, they asked him, Breanna Stewart, and said, we love to sit down with Adam. We love for him to be at the table. He said, man, I ain't sitting down at the table with y'all. I got real things to do. I'm not sitting down at the table with y'all. I'll deal with Kathy and them behind the scenes, because it's more of that good cop, bad cop. He gonna play the good cop with y'all, because if he sit down at the table with y'all, y'all are gonna be pissed off when y'all realize he agrees with what Kathy and the owners are doing and saying. He let it be known months ago, you guys need to knock it off with this rev sharing thing. He told y'all months ago to knock it off. He said y'all need to be focused on increased salaries, not revenue share. He told y'all that months ago. Y'all have ignored it and tried to dance around it and still.
Adam Silver addressed the ongoing collective bargaining negotiations, and while his tone was measured, the message was clear. The timeline is tightening. He referenced the 11th hour, a phrase he has used before when discussing past labor negotiations, but this time the calendar carries real weight. Training camps are approaching, the draft must be held, free agency must open, expansion logistics need to be finalized. None of that moves forward without a ratified collective bargaining agreement. When Silver talks about potentially setting a drop-dead date, he isn't issuing theatrics, he's outlining operational reality. The league has roughly 2 months before key preseason processes begin. That means there are hard logistical deadlines, not abstract bargaining leverage. Without a CBA in place, there is no defined salary cap. Without a salary cap, contracts cannot be structured. Without contracts, roster construction stalls. Silver didn't need to threaten anyone directly. Simply laying out the sequence of events was enough to underscore the pressure. The leverage in this situation is not rhetoric, it is the calendar. Silver also made it clear that while he is involved, he is not personally sitting at the negotiating table. That distinction matters. In executive terms, it signals confidence in the existing leadership structure while still maintaining oversight. The Players' Union has expressed interest in engaging him directly, but Silver's approach suggests he views his role as supervisory rather than transactional. He is monitoring progress, applying subtle pressure, and reminding both sides of shared consequences. Why speak now? Because timing matters. NBA All-Star Weekend provides a national media platform, and Silver understands optics. Publicly acknowledging urgency without escalating tension allows him to frame the narrative as one of responsibility rather than confrontation. He has been through multiple NBA labor negotiations. He understands how quickly momentum can evaporate if deadlines are missed. His comments reflect experience, not panic. There is also the broader business landscape to consider. The WNBA has experienced significant growth in visibility, viewership, sponsorship interest, and broadcast expansion. That momentum is fragile. A prolonged labor dispute risks interrupting audience engagement at a time when casual fan interest is expanding. Silver referenced the progress women's basketball has made. In corporate language, that includes media rights growth, advertiser confidence, and long-term revenue trajectory. Disruption introduces uncertainty, and uncertainty affects investment. The draft, expansion processes, and free agency windows are not symbolic milestones. They are structural pillars of league operations. Delays create cascading complications. Television partners build schedules months in advance. Sponsors activate campaigns around season launches. Arenas coordinate availability with other events. When Silver discusses timeline compression, he is pointing to operational realities that extend far beyond negotiations themselves. Another key detail in his remarks was his refusal to immediately declare a firm deadline. That restraint is strategic. Setting a hard cutoff too early can escalate tensions unnecessarily. By saying he is not ready to set one yet, while simultaneously emphasizing how close the league is to that point, he places pressure on both sides without cornering them. It is a calibrated message. Progress needs to accelerate, but resolution is still achievable. The union's strategy has included public messaging designed to rally support. The owners have largely maintained a quieter stance. Silver's intervention subtly shifts the tone toward pragmatism. His comments suggest that extended posturing will not override structural deadlines. At some point, agreements must move from principle to paperwork. It is important to understand that Silver's priority is stability. The NBA has invested financially and operationally in the WNBA for decades. While the WNBA operates with its own commissioner and governance, the NBA's backing provides financial infrastructure and credibility. That relationship means prolonged instability reflects across both organizations. Silver's involvement signals oversight, not takeover.
Plot twist in a Bad Spy movie. Meanwhile, WNBA players over here like, can we get that pressure in the form of a raise instead? The pressure should be on the WNBPA, especially after doing stupid stuff like this. The world wants to watch Caitlin Clark hoop, and these women are writing second-grade jokes to the owners. Grow up and sign the damn deal. You see what I'm saying? This is what people are thinking about what these WNBA players are doing right now.
There is also the competitive element. Players need clarity on contracts and compensation structures to prepare for the season. Owners need predictability to allocate budgets. Fans need assurance that the season will begin on time. The longer negotiations extend without resolution, the greater the ripple effect across those groups. Silver's comments function as a reminder that uncertainty carries costs. Momentum in women's basketball is a central factor here. Increased national attention, new broadcast deals, and expanded corporate partnerships have positioned the league in a stronger economic place than in prior bargaining cycles. Interrupting that trajectory risks losing hard-earned gains. Silver's experience in prior NBA lockouts likely informs his awareness of how quickly public goodwill can dissipate during labor disputes.
The absence of several established superstars intensifies that leadership evaluation. Without Aja Wilson anchoring the interior or Stewart absorbing late-game defensive focus, perimeter organization carries greater weight. That absence removes insulation. Whoever initiates offense will face direct defensive attention rather than secondary coverage. This environment is not cushioned, it is revealing. For younger players, that exposure can accelerate growth or expose gaps. For veterans, it can reaffirm reliability. Spacing differences in FIBA play will test shooting mechanics and timing. The shorter corner three-point distance changes defensive closeout angles. Help defenders can stunt and recover differently than in WNBA spacing. Guards must recognize those subtleties quickly. Clark's deep range stretches beyond structural adjustments, which can neutralize some spacing compression. Bucher's efficiency relies on mid-range precision and timely cuts, which remain viable internationally. Gray's comfort operating in tight spaces may prove valuable against disciplined shell defenses. Plum's relocation movement can distort zone responsibilities. Each player brings a counter to common international schemes. Another variable is defensive assignment flexibility. International guards often operate within structured systems, but defensive intensity can escalate quickly. The staff must consider not only offensive creation, but also point-of-attack containment. Bucher's length can disrupt passing lanes. Gray's positioning intelligence can offset quicker guards. Clark's anticipation has improved, though she remains primarily valued for offense. Plum's motor provides ball pressure. These defensive trade-offs influence closing lineups just as much as offensive production. As practices unfold in Miami before departure to San Juan, combinations will be tested in controlled settings. Coaches often observe communication habits in scrimmages more closely than highlight plays. Who calls out coverage? Who adjusts spacing without prompting? Who recovers mentally after a turnover? Those micro-evaluations inform macro decisions. The managing director's broader authority frames long-term vision, but on-court chemistry must be visible in repetition. It is also important to consider how international opponents will scout this roster. Film study will focus on tendencies. If Clark is primary, opponents may blitz early ball screens and force secondary decision-makers to initiate. If Gray starts, defenses may sag.
Plot twist in a Bad Spy movie. Meanwhile, WNBA players over here like, can we get that pressure in the form of a raise instead? The pressure should be on the WNBPA, especially after doing stupid stuff like this. The world wants to watch Caitlin Clark hoop, and these women are writing second-grade jokes to the owners. Grow up and sign the damn deal. You see what I'm saying? This is what people are thinking about what these WNBA players are doing right now.
underscreens to challenge pull-up volume. If Buchers leads, teams may test physicality to disrupt rhythm. Anticipating those counters and preemptively adjusting becomes part of strategic planning. The guard who best adapts within possessions may earn extended trust. Public conversation will likely magnify every rotation choice, but internally the calculus remains performance-based. Efficiency metrics, turnover ratios, defensive breakdown frequency, and plus-minus trends will shape decisions beyond narrative. However, because this tournament is both evaluative and symbolic, optics cannot be entirely separated from impact. A clear hierarchy simplifies communication. Ambiguity invites speculation. The program must weigh competitive advantage against transitional sensitivity. By the time the final game concludes on March 17th, patterns will have emerged. Perhaps one guard consistently closes games due to defensive steadiness. Perhaps another ignites scoring runs that shift momentum. Perhaps a dual initiator lineup proves most balanced. Whatever unfolds, those patterns will inform early projections for Berlin in September 2026. Continuity often builds from initial trust assignments. If a player is consistently entrusted with late-game possessions now, that responsibility becomes precedent. Ultimately, this qualifying window represents more than a checklist event. It is an inflection point between established championship lineage and emerging generational influence. The roster composition signals willingness to evaluate broadly. The absence of certain veterans opens opportunity. The presence of multiple capable organizers creates competition. The decision of who sets tone first will ripple through lineups, rotations, and public interpretation. International tournaments reward clarity. When roles are defined early, execution sharpens. When hierarchy remains unsettled, hesitation can surface in critical moments. Team USA has the talent depth to experiment without jeopardizing outcome, but identity cannot remain theoretical for long. Whether the offense is steered by veteran steadiness, dynamic range expansion, balanced efficiency, or a rotational blend, the choice will reveal strategic direction. San Juan will not determine the final Berlin roster outright, but it will establish a framework. It will show which pairings generate sustainable advantages and which combinations require recalibration. It will clarify which guard thrives under condensed preparation cycles and unfamiliar officiating rhythms. And perhaps most importantly, it will indicate whether the program is ready to center its next chapter around present performance or gradual succession. Once the ball is tipped, interpretation gives way to execution. Possessions accumulate, rotations tighten, trust becomes visible. By the end of the week, the question that began with who runs the offense will have an evidence-based answer, even if debate continues. And that answer will shape not only qualifying impressions, but the blueprint for pursuing another world title in Berlin.
Public perception plays an equally important role. Fans often struggle to differentiate between league offices, ownership groups, and players' unions. When disputes arise, frustration tends to be generalized. Silver's messaging appears calibrated to minimize the perception of chaos. By presenting the situation as a matter of timing rather than conflict, he reduces the likelihood of fans framing negotiations as adversarial hostility. History offers instructive parallels. Professional sports leagues across North America have experienced labor disruptions at various points. Some have resulted in shortened seasons. Others concluded just hours before deadlines. In most cases, both sides ultimately recognize that missed games carry compounding financial and reputational costs. Silver's references to previous bargaining cycles suggest awareness that while brinksmanship can be strategic, crossing the brink produces consequences that linger. From the union standpoint, holding firm near a deadline can yield concessions. Owners typically prefer avoiding cancellations because revenue losses are immediate and visible. However, modern labor dynamics are shaped by data transparency and long-term financial modeling. Owners may be more prepared for short-term disruption if they believe structural demands threaten long-term viability. That dynamic creates a complex game theory environment in which both sides calculate risk tolerance carefully. Silver's refusal to declare a firm drop-dead date at this stage preserves flexibility. It prevents negotiations from becoming a countdown spectacle. Yet by introducing the concept publicly, he ensures that stakeholders recognize the approaching inflection point. This dual strategy maintains negotiating space while clarifying inevitability. Economic modeling likely underpins much of the behind-the-scenes conversation.
Revenue projections, cost structures, travel expenses, marketing budgets, and player compensation pools are analyzed under multiple scenarios. What happens if the season begins 2 weeks late? What happens if the draft is postponed? Each scenario carries ripple effects. Silver's comments suggest those models are informing urgency. There is also the human element. Players prepare year-round for the season. Training regimens, personal schedules, endorsement commitments, and international obligations align with league calendars. Uncertainty disrupts more than payroll. It disrupts preparation. Owners face parallel disruptions in ticket sales campaigns, corporate hospitality packages, and arena scheduling. Every week of ambiguity compounds complexity. The broader sports landscape adds another layer. Competing leagues and entertainment properties vie for audience attention. A delayed start risks ceding media space to other events. Momentum in sports can be fragile. Silver's focus on preserving progress reflects awareness that sustained visibility requires consistency. Financial investors observing the league's trajectory may also interpret prolonged negotiations as a signal of instability. While labor disputes are not uncommon in professional sports, extended uncertainty can affect valuation metrics. Silver's messaging appears designed to reassure stakeholders that leadership recognizes timing constraints and intends to avoid disruption. It is also worth noting that collective bargaining outcomes often shape competitive windows for years. Salary cap growth rates, luxury tax thresholds, and revenue-sharing formulas influence roster construction strategies long after negotiations conclude. The stakes are therefore both immediate and generational. As the calendar advances, communication frequency may increase. Public statements can function as pressure valves, releasing tension by clarifying intentions. Silver's comments at this stage serve to anchor expectations. They establish that while negotiations are ongoing, the window for resolution is narrowing in practical terms. Ultimately, the situation illustrates the delicate balance between growth ambitions and operational discipline. The league aspires to expand visibility, compensation, and market presence. Those aspirations require coordinated alignment between labor and ownership. Silver's role is to maintain that alignment long enough for a deal to crystallize. If progress accelerates in the coming weeks, his comments will